April 30th, 1975. Less than 50 years ago, hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese refugees fled across the ocean. Hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese refugees were taken from their homeland, forced to move across the ocean to foreign nations in search of one thing. And that one thing, so basic, so guaranteed, that most people become complacent with it today. That one thing is the same thing that drove my parents to the United States. That one thing was the same thing that drove you and your parents and your family to the United States. It's freedom. As simple as it may seem. To them, freedom was a right to be fought for. They fought hard to have the ability to succeed and to own themselves. That freedom is what led me here today. Without that war, without that conflict that had happened in Vietnam, without them being pushed across hundreds of thousands of miles, without that conflict causing so many hardships, I would not be standing here today. I would not have been born in America. But that leads me to a complicated topic. Many of us, first generation Vietnamese Americans, even some of us, second generation Vietnamese Americans, have a hard time understanding our past. We grow up in America where we have everything guaranteed to us. We don't understand what our past was. We didn't understand what and how we got here. I've only heard stories of what it meant to be a Vietnamese refugee. I've only heard stories of people falling over boats and drowning themselves rather than starve themselves. I've only heard stories of my parents coming home to their neighborhood only to find it decimated with debris and ash and dead bodies of their fallen neighbors. I've only heard stories of what it meant to be starving, a term I use to describe when I'm hungry, but a term they used to describe what it meant to be on the brink of death. I've only heard stories of that desperation. That is why I grew up in a life of innocence, a life of not knowing my past, blind from all the pain that happened only decades before I came into the earth. As I grow up, as I continue to grow up, as I continue to graduate high school and all my schooling, I've come to an understanding it wasn't just innocence, it was ignorance. I was ignorant of my past because I chose not to learn more of it. I was ignorant of my past because I didn't choose to understand it. I had the resources at my fingertips, the ability to ask another about the tragedies, but I chose not to because I was young. And honestly, the first game that came out was more exciting than that. But here I am, choosing to understand my past. Why? Because that past is built off or builds onto the present. That present is not guaranteed without the past. And that present can't help you into the future if your past isn't guaranteed, or rather understood. You can only ignore your culture and how you've gotten here for so long. You can't wake up in the morning and decide that your skin's a different color. You can only wake up and tell yourself it's not true. Tell yourself that you don't want to believe in what's fact. And with that, I'm telling each and every one of you, understand your foundation. Understand who you are in the past, because who you are in the past determines who you will be in the present. And I don't mean you literally. I mean who you are as a people from the past. Several decades ago, those people who flocked across the ocean in search for freedom are the same people who clothe you, who put a roof over your head. Same people who give you the very food they would have been begging for if it were them. Because without the past, the present isn't cemented and the future can't be determined. But that raises a question. Time is a never-ending process. Generations come and go. That is where we stand. Vietnamese Americans, first generation and second, continuing so forth. We all stand as a transition into the next. What we take in and what we understand and what we learn is what we will be able to pass into the future. The same blood that runs through those who died in the war, that same blood flows through you because you are Vietnamese, because I am Vietnamese. That same blood is the same blood that is threaded into our flag. Into the flag that has so characterized freedom, has so characterized one thing that I believe cannot be sacrificed for future generations. That one thing helps us understand our people as a whole. It may not help the whole picture, but even a fraction of it is better than knowing none of it. That one thing, equivalent to freedom, is unity. I don't mean unity in oneself. I mean unity as a people. Because there is no I in team, there's no singular person that can make up a population. That red thread, that blood that is woven into each and every one of us must unify us, so we as a people can hand down the gifts and the talents and the understanding in our culture to the next generation, not in hopes that our food and our language will stay alive, but in hopes that the lives that had passed before us aren't in vain. In hopes that those who sacrificed their life for us to be able to sit here, for us to be able to stand here, are not in vain. Because if it wasn't for those who died on April 30th, 1975, and the years before that, and the years after that. If it wasn't for the generations that had come centuries before me, and those that still come decades before me, and those that will come decades ahead of me. If it wasn't for them, our legacy wouldn't be able to be passed on. The lives and the understanding that we obtained as a people wouldn't be able to transition to the next. That is why I ask every single one of you to not just do what I do, but to further understand and stick your neck out, put it on the line to help others understand what it means to be Vietnamese and why it's important to care about one's culture, to help them understand what it means to care about one's past,